Happy Pride Month, everybody, and especially to my new followers. I got over 30 new followers the other day because someone commented on one of my videos about my voice and my username, and they called me faggot. And my response was basically to pretend that I thought that they were flirting with me and wish them a happy Pride. And I posted that on the Gamers subreddit, which is GAYMERS, Gay Gamers subreddit. And I got a lot of really nice comments, actually. People asked me what the video was, what the game in the video was, and some people went and watched, and they talked about my voice and my way of speaking, and they said that I sound like I know what I'm doing. I sound like I speak very naturally. Somebody said that my voice was soothing. All sorts of things that I never would have thought about myself at all. But they were very nice. And I really wanted to make a video for Pride Month for those new followers, or new subscribers. They're not called followers on YouTube, they're called subscribers. They're called lovelies, or whatever you want to call them. Anyway, I really wanted to make a video for Pride, and I'm not a good editor. I do not know what I'm doing. I would love to do this with like backgrounds and pictures and sources and videos and examples, but really, just to get it out there, I'm doing it as kind of, I guess it's just, what do you call it? It's not a vlog because there's no video. It's not a blog because it's not text. I don't know what it's called. I don't know what it's called. But I'm just going to talk. There's a picture in the background. You can look at it, or you can go on another tab and pay half attention or whatever you want to do. That's how I watch videos. I don't freaking watch the video. I'm on Reddit or playing the Switch or something. But I wanted to talk about The Sims, video games, sexuality, and just kind of all sorts of stuff. I'm just going to kind of ramble and see where it goes. I do have a script written down, but it's very loose. It's mostly just like little subjects that I want to be sure to touch on, kind of in order. And I'm just going to ramble, and you're going to listen, and hopefully it's nice, and hopefully it's stuff that you can relate to. And I've shared the story of The Sims being kind of a key part of growing up for me and for understanding my sexuality before. Not very much, and not very like long form, just, hey, The Sims helped me figure it out. And I've seen a lot of people have pretty much the exact same story, which is wonderful, because it means that a lot of people shared this experience of playing The Sims and it helping them figure out who they are. And I think I'm going to talk about representation towards the end here, but that's a very important aspect of what representation is and why it matters. The Sims 1 came out in 2000, and I was 10 years old, or no, I was 9, because it came out before my birthday. I think it came out in February. I don't know if I got it right away. I don't remember how I even knew what it was, but I remember the big, old school, giant cardboard box with the flap on the front that you could open up to see full color screenshots and like character models and stuff and information about the game. And I have really vivid memories of feeling the embossed cover of that box in the car on the way home. And I know I read the manual front to back multiple times. It's a really cool manual. It's over 100 pages, and everything is written out kind of like a story, or kind of like almost like a nature documentary that's talking about Sims as if they're creatures that live in your computer and how their lives play out, and like how all the game mechanics work and stuff in like a really fun way. And I was in love with this game hardcore right away, and I actually got the box and manual for Christmas a few years ago. I've got it up on my shelf. And it's a really prized possession for me. It's not in the best shape, but it does have all the stuff in it and all the manual, and it's really nice. And even right there, just the subject of the game in general is something to talk about, because The Sims is basically a dollhouse game, and little boys don't play dolls. They don't play with dollhouses. That's just something that you're told. Boys don't like dolls. Boys like trucks, and boys like action figures, which are dolls. I mean, come on, they're freaking dolls. But I always like dolls. I still do. I have Monster High dolls on my Amazon wish list, and I like Play Arts figures and stuff like that. And a Play Arts figure is the closest thing I'm ever going to get to a Korean ball-jointed doll. If you've never heard of those, look those up. They're beautiful dolls. I had an Aladdin doll when I was little, who I don't know why, but he never had his shirt on. But I had that when I was like 6 or whenever Aladdin came out. Probably when I was even younger. I think that was like 1993 or something. But the topic of boys don't is a big one. It's just boys don't do this. And that's really not much of a thing anymore, I think. But back then, it was. That's just how things are. Boys like this, girls like this. And it's still, you go to the toy stores today and there's this big pink aisle full of baby dolls and Barbie dolls and horses and stuff. And then there's all the other aisles. And that always drove me nuts. Even as I didn't want all the pink stuff and the baby dolls, but that always drove me nuts that it was separated like that. Anyway, I'm going off topic. Anyway, one day, playing The Sims, I realized that my Sims could kiss, and they were both boys. And The Sims 1 relationships were not complex. If your Sims were friendly, they made friends. And if they did things that were romantic, they became romantic. Boys and girls, boys and boys, girls and girls, it didn't matter. The only thing that changed was, it was based on like the initiator. So like the Sim who initiated a dip kiss would be the one who does the dip. It wasn't the guy doing the dip every time. It was whoever initiated it. And that's just kind of how it worked for everything. But the system in general was really simple. It's actually a really common joke today in the Sims community that you just high five over and over and then you're friends. And it was really that easy. You could just hug over and over and then you would be able to kiss. So one day I learned that the boys could kiss. And I distinctly remember just being like, oh, boys do that? And that was it. It was the literal first exposure I'd ever had to the idea that boys could like boys. And because nobody had ever told me it was bad or anything, I didn't think anything about it. I just thought, oh, boys do that. And that was it. I didn't know it was taboo or anything. It didn't really hit me. But even not understanding it at all, from that point on, I only made boys, ever. It took me years to figure out what that actually meant, which sounds pretty dumb, but I was just a kid. I didn't understand it at all. It's just, yeah, I think I'll make boys, and I think I'll make them kiss, and I didn't really get what that meant. But years later, that experience made it a lot easier. It's a lot easier to come to terms with things when you already knew them in the back of your mind, right? And that kind of, I'm in kind of a rough spot today. I'm having not the best day, but it's because of things that I already knew in the back of my mind and have known for a while. And because I knew about it already, it's not as big of a deal. It sucks. You don't want these kind of things to happen, but you're prepared. And, what can you do? It's easier to come to terms with things when you already kind of know them. So that was a big deal for me. That was a defining moment in my life. I really treasured that. And I wrote this story out a little bit on a Facebook post for The Sims 4 because the Vampires pack was coming out. And in the trailer, the vampire was shown in a bunch of relationships because they kind of treated the vampires this time around like an Anne Rice style vampire. I'm sure there's other references that they're making with the vampires, but I'm familiar with the Anne Rice vampire novels because I was that kid in middle and high school. I read the gay vampire sex novels. So the vampires are very sexualized, and in the trailer, he's shown in, I think, 3 relationships, and the last one was with a guy, and it was just there. And even today, as an adult, that was a huge thing for me to just see that. So I commented that story and how happy I was that there was just casually a guy dating the male vampire. And I wrote the story out, and thousands of people liked it, and hundreds of people commented with their own stories and their own versions of it. And it was really amazing. I'm really fascinated by these things that gay people experienced as kids, but they didn't realize until later were obvious signifiers that they were gay. In 4th grade, I can remember I was standing on the balance beam at recess with the girls. Girls from your class. There's always the group of girls: Erin, Erica, Stacy, Norma, Rosa, Felicia, Nicole. I'm sure they were all there. I still remember them. But they were... I don't know why I was with them. I was the weird kid and nobody really talked to me much. I was the smart kid, and I compensated for that by being the weird kid. And boy, did I grow into that. It's just, kids are stupid. Anyway, another boy had gotten a haircut, and they were all talking about it. He was on the monkey bars. We were on the other side of the playground on the balance beam, and I added to the conversation that his hair looked handsome. and the girls all stopped what they were doing, started giggling, and ran away calling me gay, and I was just like, what's gay? And that was it. I never thought about it, and I didn't realize for years, oh, duh, that's gay. Oh my god, I was totally gay. I didn't even realize. And it's like, it's just, you don't realize it. But those kind of things still happen, and years later you figure it out, and it's like, oh, well, I guess that's nice that happened, because I always kind of knew. And I think that without The Sims, I would have had a harder time finding things like that funny. I think realizing what happened there a few years later might have been harder to deal with, because that kind of exposure to what sexuality really is really did a lot for me. In 2000, it was different. Different than it is now. It was a lot different for people, especially kids, to deal with that sort of thing. I had no resources. I had no confidants. I had nobody to discuss it with. I'm certain that it's different now. I know it's different now because today, as an adult, I can watch new cartoons or play new games and still be amazed at how they handle topics like sexuality. When I was little, they just plain didn't. Movies were about boys and girls. Books were about boys and girls. Games were about boys and girls. But then The Sims came along, and it could be about a boy, and nothing else did that. I didn't experience anything else that did that. And gaming when you're gay is actually a fun topic to talk about, because everyone has some sort of experience like this. Like the guys who say they always played as the girls, but they don't know why. Or they do know why, and it's because they wanted to be them. Or the guys who always played as the boys just so that they could look at them. There's a blog post I really like. I'll link to it in the description if I remember, and if I forget, someone please remind me. It's on the topic of Princess Peach as a gay icon, and it goes into being a kid and selecting Princess Peach in Mario Kart without really understanding why. And I remember the author says his mom asked him very gently and with concern in her voice, but sincerely, why do you always play as the princess? And I'm kind of tearing up a little bit here because it's such a nice thing to think about. This guy's mom noticing, he always plays as the princess. I wonder if there's a reason for that, and asking and really wanting to know. And his answer is something like, she's faster. But in reality, even if he wasn't old enough to understand the reasons, he knew that she was some sort of signifier of like femininity that little boys just aren't expected to identify with or appreciate. And he identified with it and appreciated it. And he knew it was weird, and he didn't want to let his mom know. And, I said I didn't even know at all what gay was. But I did that too. I hid my Sims. If my parents walked by, I had to make sure that they weren't on screen in case they were kissing or something. I can remember when the Hot Date expansion pack came out, and you could suddenly buy nightwear or swimwear. I would be at the store, and I'd be picking out the silk robe with silk underwear, and I would have to make sure that nobody could see when it was bedtime that my Sims were going to bed in this outfit, or that they were going to swim in the bright pink iconic Speedo that Sims 1 was kind of known for having. I knew something was weird about it. Or maybe I just knew it was, air quotes, sexual, and they'd think it was odd no matter what it was, a boy or a girl. Because even before you know what sex is or sexuality or are capable of having sexual thoughts, you still know that it's something. It's just something humans do. You still get excited or a rush, even if you can't physically act on those feelings or understand how to or what they are. Because I think people often forget that sexuality is romance too. I am romantically interested in men, not just physically. So it's possible for little kids to pick up on those concepts even before they understand what sex is. And of course, that applies to gay kids too, but nobody thinks about it that way. Kids liking princes and princesses hooking up in Disney movies is totally normal. But if you say that a kid might appreciate a Disney movie with two princes, suddenly you're corrupting them, even though it's the same thing, with the same level of sexuality involved. It's no different. But we're so ingrained in this idea that straight is the default that when you say, well, what if we let kids know that gay is a thing too? You're accused of trying to convince them to be gay, or trick them, or like a predator or something, which is ridiculous. But I'm a Princess Peach guy too. I always picked Peach. I picked her in Super Mario 2 because she could fly, but also because she has giant blonde hair, a cute little crown, a big jewel on her chest, big, huge jewel earrings, this huge pink dress. I don't consider myself particularly feminine. I mean, I know I am a little, but I don't identify as anything but a dude. I gesticulate a lot when I talk, and I can sound a little femme, and I have purple hair. I like a lot of girly things, but I don't identify in any real way as feminine. But I was really drawn to this exaggerated cartoon princess femininity that Peach encompasses, and I still am. I mean, I reblog Princess Peach stuff on my Tumblr all the damn time. I pick Peach to this day in games where she's a choice. I've kind of leaned towards Rosalina a little bit now too. Rosalina's a pretty badass bitch. But something about Peach always stuck out to me, and I do think it was a sort of you're not supposed to like this that made her so appealing. It's just how little boys are treated or were treated. Boys don't like this. That's for girls. And I think to a degree your mind just knows, well, what if I want to like these things that are for girls? And there's a bit of simple like childhood rebellion and embracing the desire to like things like that, instead of telling yourself, okay, I'm not supposed to like this. Like a tomboy who likes overalls and trucks and mud and getting dirty and stuff. To a degree, there's some sort of rebellion there where I'm not supposed to like this, but I do, and I'm going to embrace the hell out of it. It's a little harder for boys to embrace the hell out of it. Girls can be tomboys with no problem, but for boys, it's kind of rough. But what's so bad, about liking a princess who plays tennis and golf and does hardcore, high-stakes, deadly kart racing in lava zones? I mean, Peach is badass. Peach is officially described as badass in Mario Rabbids whatever crossover stuff. They called her the badass princess. And as an adult, I embrace this stuff. I actually get really excited when I remember something that I liked as a kid, but was afraid to express, because now I'm secure and confident enough to express that stuff, and it feels good. There's actually a lot of characters I can think of that signify levels of femininity that I appreciate. I like Debbie Thornberry from The Wild Thornberries, always stuck out to me. I wanted to be like her as a kid. I hated that show as a kid for some reason, but I wanted to be like her. I didn't want to be a girl. I didn't want to wear a tube top, but something about her stuck out to me. She's got winged eyeliner, giant blonde hair, grunge outfit, sass. The Great Fairy from Ocarina of Time. Holy shit, the Great Fairy. She does giant, raucous anime girl laughter when she spirals out of the fountain. She has giant pink hair. She floats. She beckons at you with her fingers and her long fingernails. She wears nothing but vines. She makes these noises. She's got giant lipstick and crazy eyeshadow. I love the freaking Great Fairy. I have a crazy trap remix of the Great Fairy Fountain theme on my phone that samples those laughs and noises, and it gives me goosebumps. Rouge the Bat from Sonic. She has a heart-themed outfit, purple and white pink color scheme. The way she acts and just the way she works alone and her obsession with gems, and she's just kind of one of those, like sultry characters who's not really sexualized. I mean, I guess a little bit, but she's a very powerful female character. I'm not going to go in here and pretend like Sonic is this really well-written hardcore series where Rouge is this huge, great character, but you know what I mean. Like Bob the Cat from Animal Crossing, that's a weird one. Bob's shirt is longer than the other animal shirts, and everyone's pretty damn sure it's a floral dress. He's just a lazy, sleepy-looking dude bro in a floral dress, and something about that was mind-blowing as a kid. Even as a kid, I noticed that and thought, good for you, Bob. Various Disney characters. I've always loved Alice and her hair and her dress and her manner of speaking. Princess Aurora and her hair. I guess I like giant blonde hair. Megara from Hercules. Again, she has giant hair. I guess I just love giant hair. Meg's entire personality and attitude resonated with me. I loved her as a kid. I love her now. Not Disney, but Thumbelina. Thumbelina is kind of a wimpy character, but I loved Thumbelina. Hell, the freaking Charo frog from Thumbelina. There's Charo in Thumbelina in frog form with an enormous pink wig, a tiny waist, huge boobs. I have a post on Tumblr about how there are like no results for the tag Charo frog, asking how is this bitch not some sort of gay icon? Look at her. How are gay dudes not all about this sexualized huge-breasted frog monster? A lot of those things you don't even realize it as a kid. Today I noticed them and I go, holy shit, I love this bitch. And it just hits me and I love it. But as a kid it was just, I like this character and I don't know why. I guess even today I don't know why. They're just characters that resonated with me for some reason. And while their identities and personalities and appearances aren't intrinsically related to sexuality or sexual identity, I think it's an aspect of my comfort with my sexuality and my identity that lets me see these characters and do, I suppose it's the equivalent of going, yes, bitch. It's a big part of gay culture, I think. Identifying with things that you wouldn't be expected to identify with, and embracing them as aspects of your identity. I love gay culture jokes, like X is gay culture. You know, like oh crap, how can I not think of a funny one? I have so many. One, it makes no sense, but it came to mind. Playing Final Fantasy VIII and quitting immediately after leaving Balam Garden is gay culture. Like stupid stuff like that. Like it's not sincere, but I love doing that. I love conflating these weird childhood concepts, or Princess Mia from Princess Diaries or whatever freaking out driving the Stang is gay culture. I love equating things like that with these feelings of being a kid and just identifying with all this weird stuff and not understanding why. I love that. And stuff like that, mostly among teens and older, it's just normal now. You know, guys can like stuff like that, and nobody really cares anymore, or at least anybody who isn't an ass, because public perception and ideals have changed so much in favor of people being who they want to be and liking what they want to like, and that feeds into a greater understanding by the general public and by individuals regarding topics like sexuality and identity for both others and themselves. And it's like you jump to today, and Sims 4 lets you make Sims who are pre or post-op transsexual. And I mean that literally. You can get into that level of detail because you can choose things like whether they pee standing or sitting, or whether or not they are able to get pregnant. And Sims can wear any clothing of either sex they want, or hair, or makeup, and use either sex's voices. And, you know, obviously real life is more complex than that, but just these few options let you really go wild. The only thing that really determines sex is their body frame. They're masculine or they're feminine, which basically means boobs and a smaller waist, or pecs and kind of a wider frame, you know. And even within those, you can adjust things to be androgynous. You can make a female sim who, by virtue of transitioning male to female in your own little story you've written for them in your head, can't get pregnant. Because, you know, realistically she wouldn't have, you know, a uterus or a womb or produce eggs. And you can make a male sim who, by virtue of not quite being done with surgery, maybe still has to sit to pee. Which is really, I hope I'm not being offensive giving these examples. A male sim, you know, who couldn't afford a boob job yet, but otherwise stands to pee and can't get pregnant and wears a cocktail dress out on the town, but still has facial hair because he's mostly just a cross-dresser, and he's, you know, that's just who he is. He's not necessarily trans, he's just a cross-dresser. And these are really goofy examples, and I hope they're not offensive, but the game gives you the power to make up that story. You can make a sim who is literally at any stage of transitioning, at any gender identity they want, just because of those two options and the ability to give them any clothing and hair and whatever that you want. And that is fucking incredible. For games to get to the point where this game aimed at children and teens lets you do that is incredible. When I was little, being gay was barely represented in anything, and now today people can load up The Sims 4 at age 10, open up Create a Sim, and see that not only can their boy Sims wear girl clothes and vice versa, but see varying degrees of sexual and gender identity. And then they go into the relationship panel and they can set their boys as husbands and their females as wives. And I am so happy for the kids growing up today that they get to experience this kind of stuff. Some people get upset because, you know, my kid doesn't need to know about those damn trans people and things like that. But kids don't know. They don't know what this is. They only think it's weird if you tell them it's weird. Nobody told me being gay was weird, so when I came across it, I just thought, neat. And I moved on with my life. But even though I barely acknowledged it, it was still a core part of forming who I ended up being. It didn't make me gay, but when I realized I was gay, it helped me. And I hope that some kid goes into The Sims 4 and has the same experience but with a Sims gender identity and just goes neat. And then years later, they go, holy shit, The Sims prepared me for this. You know, the way that gaming and media in general has evolved to feature gay relationships is incredible. Like, just looking at The Sims is like a tiny time capsule of how sexuality worked out in the real world, because in Sims 1, gay Sims could not get married. They could kiss and they could have sex, but no weddings. But marriage was barely a thing in the first game. Anyway, it was really just kissing in a tux and a dress, but gay Sims couldn't do it. When Sims 2 came along, it was 2004, and it featured joined unions, which at that time in the US, civil unions were a big thing, which were basically, they weren't marriages. You were not afforded anywhere near the total rights given to married couples, but it was sort of, it wasn't the equivalent. It wasn't separate but equal. It was a stepping stone that was considered good enough and a step forward for the time. And then by the time Sims 3 came out in 2009, there was full-on gay marriage. And now Sims 4 has gay marriage and varying degrees of sexual and gender identity. And even with the right combination of traits and stuff, you can even get into poly relationships. And then there's the Get Together expansions pack lets you make clubs. And if you put the right club rules in your club, you can basically make clubs where people come together and they hug and they kiss and they have sex without any jealousy between each other. So you can roleplay any sort of relationship you want, which is amazing. And I mean, cartoons are getting into it too. I watched 2 cartoons that feature gay parents. Clarence has a kid with 2 moms, and The Loud House has a kid with 2 dads. And there's actually an entire Loud House episode about one of the female characters having a crush on someone named Sam. And at the end of the episode, it's revealed that they're a girl. And it doesn't go further than that. There hasn't been a follow-up episode or anything yet. But this is on Nickelodeon. This is just happening on kids' TV. The gay agenda, we've done it. It's happening. We're finally doing it. We're turning the frog kids gay with cartoons. It's great. And, don't even get me started on Steven Universe, which Steven Universe has huge, complicated topics regarding sexuality, featuring an almost all-female cast, overt sexual tension, multiple sets of lesbians, abusive relationships, androgyny, bisexuality is nuts. It's crazy how much this show gets to do with female characters in love. And I could literally go on for hours about characters in shows and situations and games and movies that have done representation justice. But I've kind of gone way off topic, and this is probably getting long. So I'm going to end with a ramble on the topic of representation in general. I know that even in the gay community, people have trouble understanding why representation even matters. And outside of the gay community, it's even worse. People just don't get it. And I kind of want to try and get into it a little bit. Representation gives people reassurances they otherwise might not have. Every single movie, TV show, game, book, or even song you've heard has pretty damn high chances of including a man and a woman falling in love, right? So imagine being gay and not really knowing it. Imagine being a little boy who sees these things from age 0 to 12 and never once understands that sometimes boys like boys. And suddenly, you feel like you like boys. Imagine how difficult that is. But imagine that same kid liked watching Nickelodeon and saw that one of the kids has 2 dads. And instantly, just from that one little situation, that idea has been put out there. People can have 2 dads. Boys can like boys sometimes. And the relief there of understanding yourself from that one little slice of representation means the world. I cannot imagine how much harder a time I would have had if I hadn't had The Sims when I was little. It taught me that boys sometimes kiss boys. And that was honestly all I fucking needed to grow up secure with liking boys. Even if I had had parents who were openly anti-gay and had told me what gay was and that it was bad, I still think seeing it happen in The Sims would have been a huge deal for me. And now, as an adult who is still part of a marginalized group, seeing a character who is gay still has meaning. It validates things that I don't feel invalid about, but appreciate support for. I like knowing that it could help some kid the same way The Sims helped me. I like when characters like things I like. Everybody does that. But when it's something so personal, like a deep-rooted part of your very social identity that dictates every relationship you're ever going to have, it's nice to see that people in media can be the same as you and have the same problems as you and experience the same treatment as you. Now, Love, Simon came out recently. It's the first real major motion picture gay romantic dramedy sort of deal to come from a major studio and be highly publicized. And the director of the film, a married gay man, cried so hard seeing the final film because even at his age, even married, he still needed that representation to exist. And it still helped him emotionally with himself. Imagine what that does for some kid who goes to see it, or some kid whose parents see it and understand him better. Representation begets normalization, which begets change and improvement. The more often people are exposed to the idea that people can be gay and not be any different than anyone else, and that it's okay, the easier time everyone has with the topic. We still live in a world drowning in civil rights problems, even in America, and representation is a simple and achievable step towards dulling those issues or getting rid of them outright. It has to start somewhere. In a more general sense, if I watch an anime with an ensemble cast, but none of the characters is like me or hits on any of my own feelings, it's not the end of the world. But everyone knows what it's like when one of those characters shares something with you that you hold dear or feel strongly about. One of those characters is gay? Yep, that's awesome. That's for me. Someone did that to help me, and I appreciate that, and I'm happy about it. I mean, of course I can identify with straight characters, but this is just something stronger. Final Fantasy X is my favorite RPG, and I cry for Tidus and Yuna really hard. But if Tidus and Yuna were both boys, you bet I would cry even harder. It's very hard to explain to someone who's straight and doesn't have to think about that topic, because literally everything they see, down to a simple yogurt ad in the freaking grocery store, has straight people in it. But when I see an ad where two guys are just casually sitting on a couch holding hands, holy shit, does that hit me hard. It is so meaningful. Even as happy with myself and my sexuality as I am, it means the world. I go on YouTube and I watch gay ads and coming out videos and stuff just to cry about them, just to feel good about that these things exist and that people can see them and share them. I love reading coming out stories. I love seeing this stuff. I really went off on a lot of things there, and it wasn't very well structured, but I had a lot of thoughts I wanted to put to paper, so to speak, and hopefully it was interesting to listen to. And people can identify with this bullshit that I just rambled my ass off about. I would love it if you could comment your own experiences or feelings on that sort of thing for me, especially stories about liking things as a kid that you later realized fed into understanding yourself better. I love those stories, and I would love to hear yours. Thank you again to everybody who subscribed to me and everybody who had such nice things to say about me. I'm really sorry this isn't a proper video and that I couldn't even put anything in the background to show you. I tried to record it over playing The Sims 4 and just kind of playing or building, but it was impossible. I couldn't focus on the words, and then I would say something that would kind of make me tear up, and it just was impossible. It's better to just put it over a picture and be done with it, even if that's like complete antithesis to what YouTube's about. But I really appreciate it. Thank you if you've listened this far. I went on for probably forever. Thanks again for subscribing. Thank you for listening. Happy Pride Month, everybody. Be proud. I love you. Bye.